Hello, middle school and high school students. This is the Virtual Excel Academy. We say welcome to you as you come in the room today. I am really excited to be able to share that the Excel Academy today, our teacher instructor is Cody Laplante, and he's going to lead our instruction today. We get to learn about how Braille displays work with screen readers. I know that I have a lot to learn about this. So, as you come in the room, middle school, high school students, we say welcome and we hope that you are geared up and ready to learn. Cody, it's all yours.
All right. Hi, everybody. Great to see everybody again. Thank you so much for coming. I'm going to share my screen. And as I do, I'm going to start talking about Braille displays. Today, we're going to be talking all about Braille displays and all about Braille displays and how they work with screen readers. Today, it's going to be called a fun dynamic duo part uno. Why? Because this is part one of two parts. So today, we're going to be focusing on just the fundamentals, the basics of using a Braille display with a screen reader. And in the next section that is coming up in a couple of weeks, we'll be kind of continuing that conversation. So today is just part one of two. Now, let me make sure I can, beautiful. Today, we're going to be mainly focusing on JAWS and NVDA. So if you're a JAWS or NVDA user, this will be really applicable to you. But honestly, if you're using Chromebox or VoiceOver, a lot of this information will be applicable to you as well. Okay. Today, what we're going to be doing two things. First, we're going to be talking about how to navigate the NVDA and the JAWS settings to change our Braille options. That's number one. That's kind of like the thing that we have to get through to get to the really exciting part. And the really exciting part is our second objective, which is we have to identify which Braille code to use when, right? So we're going to talk all about that and about how there's UEB, which we read all the time, right? If you're a Braille reader, you know what UEB is, right? Unified English Braille. But then when we use a Braille display, we have to know what Computer Braille is. And we're going to try to start to figure out when do we use UEB and when do we use Computer Braille. So those are our two goals today, is learn how to change settings and talk about which code to use when, all right? So before we even talk about Braille displays and how to use them, we want to know what Braille displays actually are. Okay, so I'm going to read out a couple of names here. And I want you to think to yourself in your head, is this something that I currently use? All right, so some of these names are, if you're using the Braille Edge, a Brailliant 40 or Brailliant 14, a Focus 40 or Focus 14, a Mantis that should say Q40, Orbit 20, Chameleon. And then if you use the Braille Note Touch or the Braille Sense, if you use it in terminal mode, these are all Braille displays, okay? Now, if you're thinking, oh, I use my Braille Note Touch and I log on and I use keyword and key math, that's not what we're talking about today. We would call that a Braille Note Taker, okay? What I'm talking about is taking a Braille display, right? Something that doesn't have an operating system, is not its own computer, and hooking up it up to your computer and using it with a screen reader, okay? So that's what we're talking about today. All right. So there are many, many different types of Braille displays. Think about the one that you use or the one that you're most familiar with. Okay. And it might be one of the Braille displays on the screen. It might not. It might be something different. Okay. But it doesn't matter. Today, we're just talking about Braille displays in general. Okay. Now, I want to start by talking about why are Braille displays so awesome. Okay. Lots of people really love the Braille Note Touch. But why are Braille displays so awesome? Okay, so I just want you to think to yourself in your head, why do you think a Braille display might be more powerful than a Braille Note Touch or a Braille Sense? Why is this such a powerful piece of technology? Okay, so just think to yourself in your head, why do you think? As you do, I'm going to show you a little example here. Let's say that I've just downloaded a book from Bookshare. I actually already have. I've downloaded this book, The Giver. Okay. You might be familiar with it. All right. What I'm going to do is we're going to pretend I have a Braille display hooked up and I'm going to open up JAWS. Oh, I am spelling JAWS incorrectly. Let's try that again. JAWS 2021. All right. Let's see what comes up here.
JAWS. The underline giver 00.
All right. So now I have JAWS open.
Virtual Excel 2, the underline giver 00.
And now if I have a connected Braille display, I have just downloaded this book, put it in Microsoft Word, and I have a
This accessible
full
media has
Braille copy of this book. All right. So I might ask to yourself, why is a Braille display so awesome? Well, it's because you can get something that is totally not in Braille, something that is just a Word file, just random. And now it can be in total accessible Braille for you. That is why Braille displays are so awesome. Now you might be saying, oh, my Braille Note Touch can do that as well. But your Braille Note Touch can only do that on certain apps where your Braille display has the power of your entire computer, right? I tell my students all the time that if you if you are an employee and you go to a job and you bring a Google tablet and you say, this is the only thing I can work on, guess what? It's going to be really hard to be employed at a lot of places. Now you can bring your Google tablet to work and you can have that help you do your job, but you're probably going to be using a computer. Why? Because computers are super, super powerful. All right. So this Braille display makes anything in Braille with the power of a computer, a real computer. Okay. Not a tablet, a real computer. So why are Braille displays so awesome? That's the reason. All right. I just wanted to start with that. Let me turn off my speech here so it doesn't get
speech on demand.
All right. Let me present my screen. Why are Braille displays so awesome? Because it shows in Braille everything that is out in the world with the power of a full computer. All right. Let me go next. All right. Actually, let me turn off JAWS so that Braille viewer is not in the way. All right. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to do something a little interesting, a little bit fun. Okay. I have written 3 statements on the screen. I'll read them out loud in a second. And we're going to play with those 3 statements, 2 truths and a lie. Now, if you've never played 2 truths and a lie, this is how it works. I'm going to read 3 statements. 2 of them are true and 1 of them is a myth or a lie. All right. And your job now is to write, if you're live in the session, you can write it in the chat, A, B, or C, or think in your head if you're listening onto the recording, which one is the lie. All right. So I'm going to read these out loud. Letter A, is this the lie? A Braille display is a necessary piece of equipment for a screen reader user that reads Braille. So if you're a screen reader user that reads Braille, is the Braille display a necessary piece of equipment? Is that the lie? Or is it B, a Braille display is a device you must learn to use? Is that the lie? Or is it C, all Braille displays fundamentally, that means at a basic level, work the same way? All right, which one is the lie? Is it A, Braille display is a necessary piece of equipment for a screen reader user that reads Braille? Is it B, a Braille display is a device you must learn to use? Or is it C, all Braille displays fundamentally work the same way? If you're in the live recording, feel free to put A, B, or C. Which one do you think is the lie in the chat? If you're listening on the recorded version, just think in your head, which one do you think is the lie? As we do that, I'm going to open the chat and see what people think. All right, let's see what we got here. Oh, I might need to exit first.
Let's see what we got. We have a couple of entries in here that have chosen answer B. Actually, 2 of our live audience chose B as their choice for the lie.
I agree. For those of you who said B, I agree. The reason is because a Braille display is not something you need to learn to use, right? What do you need to learn how to use? A screen reader and a computer is what you need to learn to use, right? A lot of people say to me, they might say, hey, Mr. Cody, if they're my student, or they might say, Cody, how do I use the Focus 40? Or I'm struggling to use the Brilliant 14. And that's kind of like saying I'm struggling to use the monitor or the screen that my computer is hooked up to. It doesn't make a lot of sense, right? What you're actually struggling to use is the computer. right? Or the screen reader, okay? A Braille display, number one, is a necessary piece of equipment for screen reader users that read Braille, right? It is, all Braille displays do actually work the exact same way on a fundamental level, but a Braille display is not something you need to learn to use. Now, you might be saying, how does that make sense? We're sitting here in a webinar that's about Braille displays. Well, what we're learning today is how to use the screen reader to use Braille, not to how to use a Braille display. In fact, on my desk right now, there is no Braille display. I can show you an entire webinar on Braille displays without having one. Why? Because a Braille display is not something you need to learn to use. You need to learn how to use the screen reader and how to use the screen reader to read Braille, okay? The Braille display is just the screen. It's just the monitor, all right? So good job for those of you who said B, all right? Now let's learn your settings. So this is going to be a section where we follow along. If you're in the live section and you have a screen reader ready and open, you can follow along with me. If you're in the recorded, if you're watching this recorded, you can also follow along and pause as you need to. So today I'm going to show you the options menu for Braille. I'm sorry, for Braille, for JAWS. And I'm also going to show you the Braille settings for NVDA. So let me start with JAWS, okay? We just started doing that a little bit. So let me go to my desktop. I did Windows and D, and I'm going to open up JAWS with that Windows key, JAWS, enter. All right.
JAWS. Chat.
Move my chat here. All right. So now I'm going to show you how to get to the options menu for Braille. What I'm going to do is I'm first going to do Alt Tab to get to the JAWS program. All right. Alt Tab, remember, switches our program focus. So I'm holding down Alt and pressing Tab until I get to JAWS. Here we go.
Virtual Excel-MS/H. The underline giver 0000. The underline giver.brf Braille Zephyr. The giver. JAWS Home Manual.
Oh, there it is.
JAWS Home Manual.
So I'm going to get to JAWS, and now I'm going to use Alt and O to get to my options menu. Remember, if you get to a menu, every single time you go to a menu in a program with the screen reader, you're using an Alt command. That means you're holding down Alt and then doing a key. To get to options, it's Alt and O.
Alt O.
All right.
Menu. Options menu.
Now I'm going to use my arrow keys because we're in a menu and go down to Braille.
Voices submenu. Braille ... Enter.
All right.
Leaving menus.
And now I'm going to, now this dialog box is where I connect my Braille display. Right now, I don't have a Braille display connected, but if you did have a Braille display connected, you go to add Braille display. You need to connect it. Now today, I'm going to show you just the advanced settings. All right. So I'm going to tab through this dialog box until I get to advanced.
Add Braille display ... button. Advanced ... button.
I'm going to press
To
enter
activate,
on
press
advanced.
spacebar. Enter. Default left paren all application.
All right. So if you're at this section, or if you're following along, especially if you're in the recorded, feel free to do that a couple of times until you get used to it so that you can get to this section. All right. Right now I'm in my advanced settings and I'm on the Braille section. Okay. Now this settings works just like a tree view. That means if you find a setting that you want to open up, you're going to press the right arrow key, okay, to open that settings up. If you find something that you want to change, you're going to press the space bar. So 2 rules with a tree view. If you find something that you want to open up and see more of, right arrow key. Second thing is if you want to change something, you press the space bar. Okay. I'm going to show you that now. Right now, I'm going to go down to general because I'm going to look for our Braille code. So I'm going to go down to general.
1. General.
All right.
Closed.
And it says
1 of 6.
closed. Remember, in a tree view, if I said I want to open it up, right arrow key. I want to open up general because I know that's where my Braille codes are going to be. So I'm going to open right arrow key. And it's going to open general up.
General. Open.
Now it says general open. Beautiful. Now I'm going to go down to translation.
2. Translation closed.
And this is where we're going to be working today. I'm going to open up translation.
Translation open. 6 items.
Now, if I go down to translation, we are going to start talking about the Braille codes. I'm going to first go to output.
3. Language English-United States. Output Computer Braille.
And notice it says output Computer Braille. Now we're starting to get into our second objective. All right. I'm going to show you how to change this. I'm going to go onto NVDA and show you how to change that. And then we're going to start talking about Computer Braille and UEB. For right now, I'm going to change this to UEB grade 2. If you're a grade 1 user, that's fine. You can change it to UEB grade 1. All right. Remember, how do I change this? Right? I said tree view, you open it with right arrow key. And if I want to change it, I press. What do you think? If you said space bar, you're correct. Absolutely. So I'm going to press space bar until I hear what I want to change it to. English UEB grade 2.
Space. U.S. English grade 1. Space. U.S. English grade 2. Space. Unified English Braille grade 1. Space. Unified English Braille grade 2.
Okay, so I've
5 of
changed
5.
that to English Unified English Braille grade 2. I'm going to do the same thing with input.
Read only edit.
Oh,
Select tree view.
there we go.
Input Computer Braille.
Now, thinking about what does input and what does output mean? All right, think about that to yourself as I change this Braille code to Unified English Braille grade 2. Think about what does input mean and what does output mean, and why do I have to change both of them?
Space. Unified English Braille grade 2.
Beautiful.
2 of 2.
Now, let's think about it. Output, all right, is the information that shows up on your Braille display, all right, on your Braille display from the computer, all right? It is outputting. It is bringing out information from the computer. That means if I change my Braille code to Unified English Braille grade 2, the Braille that will show up on my Braille display is going to be UEB grade 2. Now, what does input mean? That input is if I'm typing on a Braille keyboard on my Braille display, that is going to be the Braille grade that I have to type in. So if I changed my Braille grade to Unified English Braille grade 2, that means I have to be typing grade 2 Braille when I type in on the Braille display, and it's going into my computer. So output is getting information out of the computer. Input is putting information into the computer. And it's really important that we change both of them when we change our grade, because it gets a little confusing if they're not the same. Okay. So that's how we change our Braille code in JAWS. I'm going to show you the same thing in NVDA. It's a little bit simpler. Should take less time.
Enter.
All right. So I'm going to press
Braille
enter on that dialog box to say, yes, those are the settings I want to keep. I'm going to go on this next dialog box. I'm going to need to make sure I go to OK.
Show Braille load
So
error.
I'm going to tab to OK.
Run JAWS without speech checkbox not checked. OK button. Enter.
All right.
JAWS.
And to show you NVDA, I'm going to exit JAWS and it should save my settings.
Unloading JAWS. Enter.
Now let's open up NVDA. If you're an NVDA user, you familiar with Control, Alt, and N to turn it on. Let's see what happens. There it is.
Taskbar.
All right. I'm going to make sure that I am on my desktop. Alt and Tab.
Virtual Excel MS.
Actually,
Virtual Excel.
I'll do Windows and D to go to my desktop.
Folder view.
Right? Windows and D. Now I'm going to go to my NVDA settings. That's the NVDA key. So caps lock or insert. And N, NVDA settings, NVDA key and N.
NVDA menu.
I'm going to go down to preferences.
Preferences submenu P.
I'm going to open this up.
Settings.
I'm going to
Yes.
press enter on settings. Okay. So preferences is the main menu. Settings is the sub menu.
NVDA settings. General. Normal configuration. Dialog. Show Braille viewer on startup. NVDA settings.
All right.
General.
And now what I'm going to do is I'm first going to tab to my tree view.
General property page.
Oh,
categories.
sorry. Arrow down to my
Speech 2 of
tree
13.
view, and I'm going to arrow down to Braille.
Braille 3 of 13.
All right. Now, super easy. All I do is tab to get to the
Done partial
output. Tab to get to output, and then tab to get to input. Okay. So I'm going to tab until I hear output table. And I'm going to hear what Braille code I'm currently on.
Braille property page. Braille display grouping. Change. Output table. Combo box English. U.S. 8. Computer Braille collab.
All right. So I'm on English US 8. Computer Braille. All right. I want to get to UEB. All right. I think it's under English. All right. Now, if you're familiar with first letter navigation, I can just keep pressing E for English until I get to the right Braille code. E.
E. English. U.S. Grade 1. E. English. U.S. Grade 2. E. English North American Braille Computer Code. E. Esperanto Grade 1. E. Estonian Grade 0. E. Ethiopic E. English. U.K. E. English. U.K. E. English. U.K. E. English. U.
Might be under U for unified.
U. Ukrainian U. Ukrainian U. Unified English Braille Code Grade.
It's under U. So I kept pressing U until I got there.
U. Unified English Braille Code Grade 2.
All right. Remember, that's just the output table. I want to do the input table as well.
Input table, combo box English.
Okay, we're going to switch it to U, unified.
U. Ukrainian Computer Braille, U. Ukrainian Grade 1, U. Unicode Braille, U. Unified English Braille Code Grade 1, U. Unified English Braille Code Grade 2.
That's what I wanted to change. So I'm going to press enter on my dialog box to close it. Say, yes, that's what I want to save.
Show Braille Viewer on Startup checkbox checked Alt+S.
And it sounds like it's closed. I'm going to quit NVDA here. All right.
Exit NVDA.
So those are how you change those Braille code settings in JAWS and NVDA. Now, remember, that's our first objective. That's only the first thing that we wanted to get done today. This is the part that we needed to get through to get to the really interesting part. And now we're at the really interesting part. So let me go back to my slide deck to see what's next. All right. All right. So now we're going to start to talk about what's the difference between UEB and Computer Braille. On both of those, on JAWS and NVDA, we switched our Braille code from Computer Braille to UEB, right? We all know what UEB is, but what is Computer Braille and what is the difference? I want you to think about that. I'm going to circle around to the chat to make sure that I've answered some questions or kept in touch with the people that are in the live session. But even if you're in the recorded session, what is the difference between Computer Braille and UEB? What is the difference between Computer Braille and UEB? I'm going to zoom in on this chat here. Awesome. Donnie, that can be something that we've talked about in a second. How do I change the voice? You go to voices, just like you went to options menu. You go to voices, and then you change the voice from the voices menu, Donnie. Okay. Awesome. So now let me loop back to this question. What is the difference between UEB and Computer Braille? I'm going to show you. So now if you are a Braille Note Touch user, you're probably really familiar with Computer Braille. Okay. Computer Braille shows us exactly what is on the screen. That means that it does no Braille translation, right? We all know that in UEB, there is a translation from what is actually on the screen to the Braille code, right? We have to take all of those contractions and make them actual Braille contractions, right? But Computer Braille shows every single symbol that is on the screen is shown in Braille, okay? Now, why would they do that? Why do you think they would do that? All right, if you are a computer user or you are a computer developer and you wanted to make software accessible to people with visual impairments, why would you make a Braille code that shows every single symbol on the screen? Take a second to figure that out. So one of the reasons that I'll talk about is that if you were a software developer, that means you opened a coding window and you were coding, right? You were writing code. You would probably want to see all of the characters on the screen. Why? Well, because honestly, the computer code is not really in English. So contractions wouldn't really make much sense. And in computer code, you want to make sure that every single symbol is correct, right? Just like if you're writing an email to somebody and you want to put in that email address, if you mess up one symbol, that email is not going to get sent. It's really important that tasks like that make it so that we can read every single symbol on the screen, right? So that brings us to the question of why would we use Computer Braille over UEB, all right? And why is it important to know how to switch between them, okay? Why do you think? As we do this, I'm going to go to my next slide. So this is a really easy rule. So unless you're a coder, a computer programmer, you're going to want to be in Computer Braille, right? But even if you're not, even if you're like, I don't like technology, I'm not a huge fan of technology, I just do it so that I can do my schoolwork and make sure that I can get to YouTube, that's fine. But it's really important to still know, all right? For you guys that are not really not looking to have a career in computer programming, this really easy rule is what you should keep in your head as far as Computer Braille versus UEB. The question is the text already Braille translated? That means, is the text that is on your screen, is it translated in Braille already? Or is it just English? Is it just regular words? Okay. If it is already Braille translated, then you have to put it in Computer Braille. If it's not, if it's just English words, then you have to read it in UEB, okay? I'm going to show you a couple of examples of this so that we can kind of get a sense, all right? One example is if I go back to my book, right? This is the book, The Giver. I'm going to go down to chapter 1 here. I'm just scrolling down, all right? Scrolling down to chapter 1. Once I get there, I'm going to show you with my screen reader. I'm going to open, I'll open JAWS. All right, I'm going to show you with my screen reader, and we're going to decide,
JAWS.
Is this translated Braille or is it regular English? Is it translated Braille or is it regular English? Let's figure it out. I'm going to
blank. Escape. Virtual Excel -2. The underline giver 00 word. It was almost.
So one thing that just happened to me is you heard it say blank, 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 and I was trying to move around. If that happens to you, switch your program focus. That means hold down Alt and press Tab. All right. Sometimes your program focus gets a little messed up. All right. So if that happens to you, if it's not reading like it should, Alt Tab to switch that program focus. Okay. Now let's decide, is this book, is The Giver from chapter 1, is this in regular English or is it in translated Braille? All right. I'm going to test this with my reading commands. All right. One way that you know that something is in regular English and not translated Braille is that the screen reader will read it in your headphones, it'll read it out loud. If it doesn't read it out loud, there's a good chance that it's in Braille. Okay. So I'm going to read it with word by word. So Control and right arrow.
Was. Almost. December. Comma. And. Jonas. Was. Beginning. To. Be. Frightened.
Is this in translated Braille or is this in regular English? Think about that. All right. Is this in regular English or is it in translated Braille? This is in regular English, Why? A couple of reasons I know why. Number one, I heard that that screen reader reading to me in my headphones on my audio system, right? So I know that the screen reader is reading it in regular English. The other thing that I know is if you have enough vision, I have my Braille viewer open, okay? So we can see the Braille at the top of the screen. I see the regular English text up there and I see the Braille. That's a good indication it's in regular English, okay? So if I go back to my slide, let's see. Let's ask
Virtual
our question.
Excel -off.
All right.
Alert.
Beautiful. So the question is this text an already Braille translated? Is it already Braille translated? What do you guys think? Put in the chat what you think.
Context menu. Slide 10 : which space speech on demand.
We'll put in the chat what you guys think. Is it already Braille translated? Let's see. If you said no, it is not already translated, you are correct. So therefore we should be in UEB, which we are. All right. If you see up on my Braille viewer, if I had a Braille display, you can see that this is an actual translated Braille. There's our 45W for word. There's our TH ought 5.5 OUGHT for ought, for thought. All right. So you can see that it is now in grade 2 UEB. Okay. Let's give another example. I'll show you this. I also downloaded this as a BRF file. All right, as a BRF file. Now, if you don't know what a BRF file, that means that this text, this book that I downloaded as The Giver, is in translated Braille. It's called a Braille ready format. And this is really good for if you want to emboss this, okay? Or if you're reading something with math or lots of really complex translations, right? That you want to make sure that you keep the book the way it is, okay? Now this is a Braille ready format. And if you don't know, I've opened this with Braille Zephyr. All right. Braille Zephyr is really awesome. It's an APH program. And it's really close to Braille Blaster. So if you want Braille Zephyr, it's just like using a Brailler on your computer. go to Braille Zephyr, I think .org is the name of the website. All right. And you can download it. All right. So I've opened this on Braille Zephyr, and you can see, if you have some vision, that my Braille viewer is really, really different up there. All right. It's no longer in this really nice translated UEB Braille, right? So the question here is, if I have my speech on,
Full speech.
is this text fully Braille translated? Is it fully Braille translated? Let's find out. I'm going to use my reading commands here and see what it says.
Greater. E. Period. Left paren plus. 45%. Space. 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 3.
Not very pretty, is it? All right. Not very pretty. Because this is already Braille translated, it's already Braille translated, what I'm hearing in my speech output makes zero sense. It doesn't make any sense. Why? Because the screen reader has no idea how to actually read formatted Braille. All right. So it doesn't know what to say. It says all this crazy stuff. Okay. So let's go back to my slide deck here.
Space. Speech on demand.
Is that text already Braille translated? Yes, it is. So what do we use? Computer Braille. I'm going to show you how to, I'm going to go through the process of changing my Braille code so that you can see what that Braille viewer says, or up at the top, after I change it to Computer Braille. So remember, I'm going to use
Full speech.
Turn my speech on. I'm going to use my Alt and Tab to go to JAWS.
Task switching. The underline giver 000. The giver. JAWS home manual.
I'm going to go to the options menu. Remember Alt-O.
Alt-O. Menu.
I'm going to go down to Braille using my down arrow key.
Voices submenu.
Donnie, that's where you would change your voice. Okay, voices.
Braille ...
There's Braille.
L. Enter.
Now I'm going to go to advanced. Remember, this first dialog box is how we connect the Braille display, but I'm going to advanced. Tab.
Add Braille display ... button. Advanced ... button.
There we go. I'm going to press enter here.
Enter. Default left paren.
And remember, I'm going to general, translation, and then output table and input table.
1. General.
I'm going to open that up.
Close.
Remember, right arrow key to open stuff up on a tree view.
General. Open.
Now I'm going to go to translation.
2. Translation closed.
Yep, I'm going to open that up.
9.
Right arrow key.
Translation open.
And remember, I'm going down to output.
3. Language English - United States. Output Unified English Braille Grade 2.
Now remember, think about, how do I change something in a tree view? Remember, there was 2 rules for my tree view. The first one is to open something, I press right arrow key. Second one is to change something, I press what? What do you think? If you said spacebar, you are correct. I'm going to press spacebar until I hear 8 dot Computer Braille.
Space. Computer Braille.
Beautiful. All
1
right.
of 5.
The beautiful thing about this too is when I change that to Computer Braille, the input table, remember that when I press the type in on the Braille keyboard, the input table is going to change as well. So if I go down to input, it should say Computer Braille as well.
Input Computer Braille.
Beautiful. All right. So now I'm going to press enter on this dialog box.
Enter.
Going to go to the OK button on the first dialog box, tab to the OK button.
Show Braille load error checkbox. Run JAWS without speech checkbox. OK button. Enter.
I'm going to Alt tab. I'm going to switch my program focus back to my BRF file.
The underline giver .brf - Braille Zephyr.
And now
Menu bar 2 plus 99.
If I click in here, you can see that the Braille, the text still doesn't look very nice, but the Braille is nice and untranslated, and it doesn't look. Well, it should look as it does on the BRF file. For some reason, it's not showing it the way it should, but that can be something that we come back to. Yeah. So let me show you this with NVDA as well. All right. So I'm going to press caps lock F4 to unload JAWS.
Enter.
Open NVDA, Control Alt N, right? If I'm going fast for you with these key commands, no problem. You do not have to follow along.
Show Braille viewer on startup checkbox.
Okay, because this takes a lot of practice to follow along with me. Okay, so I'm going to open my NVDA menu. Remember, that's NVDA key and N.
NVDA menu.
Going to go to Preferences.
Preferences submenu P. Settings.
Go to Settings.
NVDA Settings.
Arrow down to Braille with my arrow keys.
Speech 2 of 13. Braille 3 of 13.
And remember, I'm going to go to output table.
Braille property page. Braille change. Button output table. Combo box unit.
And we're changing it to English 8 computer. All right. So I'm going to use E because of first letter navigation.
E. English. U.K. 8 computer Braille. E. English. U.K. Grade 1. E. English. U.K. Grade 2. E. English. U.S. 6 computer Braille.
We want to go to 8 .
E. English. U.S. 8 computer Braille.
There it is. I'm going to press tab to change my input table. Remember, they have to be the same. Otherwise, it gets real confusing.
Input table. Combo box unified English Braille
I'm
code
going to do the
grade.
same thing. E to get to English US 8 computer.
E. English. U.K. E. English. E. English.
I'm going to
E.
skip through
English,
here.
U.S. 6 computer Braille. E. English. U.S. 8 computer Braille.
There it is. I'm going to press enter.
The giver.brf Braille.
All right.
Edit multi-line pilot HV5.
And with my Braille viewer, let's see.
Show Braille viewer on startup checkbox checked Alt plus S. The giver.brf.
That looks much better. All right. That looks much better on my Braille viewer. Not sure what happened with my JAWS settings. There might be one thing in there that I needed to change. But you get the idea is that we want to make sure that if you're reading in translated computer Braille, or I'm sorry, if you're reading in translated Braille, you have to make sure your Braille code is switched to what? That's right, computer Braille. If you are reading regular English, you need the computer to translate in Braille for you, you need to switch to. If you said UEB, you are correct. You have to switch to UEB for sure. We're going to do a couple more exercises with this concept, okay? I'm going to shut off NVDA for the time being.
NVDA dialog.
NVDA plus Q and press enter. And go back to my slides. So we're going to do a couple of things. Let me increase this and present. Now I want you to think, I'm going to go through a couple of scenarios with you guys. I'm going to say, if I am doing this, which code should I use? If I am doing this, which code should I use? So if I'm reading a website and I want to see the Braille, if I'm reading a website and I want to see the Braille, I'm going to show you what I mean. I'm going to open a new tab. I'm going to go to apple.com. If I want to read this website, and I want to see the Braille on my Braille display, do I need to be in UEB or do I need to be in computer Braille? Let's ask our question. Is the text already Braille translated on our apple.com website? Is this text in Braille? If I used a screen reader, I would be able to read those with those reading commands. It would read that text regularly. It is not in Braille. It is not in regularly formatted Braille. It is regular plain old English. Therefore, which one would I use? Is it Braille translated? No, I would use UEB. So I'd change that code to UEB. Okay. Now let's see if you can do this next one for yourself. If I downloaded a Braille formatted book on my computer from Bookshare, that's this Braille translated format of the giver. If I download a Braille formatted book from Bookshare, which would I use? Question. Is that text already Braille translated? Yes, it is. So think to yourself, which Braille code should you choose? Should you choose computer Braille or should you choose UEB? Let us know in the chat. And if you're at home watching the recording, think about it for yourself. If you said computer Braille, you would be correct. Let's go to the next one. If I downloaded a non-Braille formatted book onto my computer. An example of that is my Word document version of the giver. Which code would I use? Which code would I use? Let's think about our question. Is this already Braille translated? No, it is not. It is regular plain English. So think to yourself, which code would you use? Computer Braille or UEB? If you said UEB, that is correct. We want the computer to translate all of this regular English into Braille, right? Absolutely. Let's go back to our slide. And finally, if I want to read a code file, this one kind of goes away from our rule, but if I'm taking a computer programming class, software engineering class, and I want to read and write a code file, which one would I use? Our computer Braille or UEB? Which one do you think? If you said Computer Braille, you would be correct. Remember, those code files, it's really important to see every single symbol. And Computer Braille shows us every single symbol. It does no translating for us. And it's really important that if you're writing a code file, if you're reading a code file, that you're in Computer Braille, okay? We will be continuing this whole topic and talking about the difference between Computer Braille and UEB in our part duo, right? And our part 2, all right, later this month. If you're interested in this topic, feel free to stop by or watch the recording, okay? And for right now, that's all I have for you guys. I want to just make sure that I circle back to our objectives. Remember, we did 2 things today. First of all, we talked about the NVDA and JAWS settings and going into those Braille settings and changing the Braille code. And then number 2, we talked about identifying which Braille code to use when. Those are 2 really important parts, the first 2 important parts that you need in order to use your Braille display effectively. Remember, you do not need to learn how to use a Braille display. You need to learn how to use your screen reader and your computer, okay? And for that's about it. That's all I have for you guys today. Feel free to come back for our part 2 on this series. But for right now, absolutely. If you're in the live session, feel free to put some last minute questions in the chat and I can try to answer them. All right. Cool.
Absolutely. This was really great. I will give a moment in case there might be miscellaneous questions to go in for you, Cody. In the
Sure.
meantime, I want to be able to give you a sincere thank you. This was great learning. It was a super pace for me and it was easy to follow,
Cool. Good.
which is exactly what I needed. Tomorrow, to all of you students, the Virtual Excel Academy goes out to eat tomorrow. And there's actually a lot of different food choices in food and how you're going to do it. Are you going to go to fast food, drive-through, a sit-down restaurant? So think about it. Join us tomorrow for going out to eat if you are available at the same time tomorrow. And Cody, I'm not seeing anything else trickle into the chat window as I'm watching and monitoring it. So if there's nothing else, then we will go ahead and close up our classroom, but we look forward to the second part when you come back to teach us a little bit more, Cody.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Great. Thank you to all of you students out there. We hope to see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.